Namaste India, and Trinidad and Tobago, Guyana, Suriname, Fiji, Mauritius, South Africa, and wherever you might be in the diaspora. I'm Dr. Visham Bhimull from Caribbean Hindustani, and for this Ramlila course, I would be presenting the language and linguistic aspects of Ramcharitramanas within the context of the indentured Indian diaspora. Okay, so as we move on to the next slide, I would like to highlight here the migration, which is very important because that's why we have in this discussion. Many of the indentured immigrants would have left Calcutta and made this journey. This journey from India to the Caribbean specifically, yes, because we are Caribbean Hindustani, but I want to emphasize that obviously this would have been a story not only in the Caribbean, but as well as other parts of the diaspora. I just want to emphasize here that the story of Ram, whether it be the Ramayana or Ramcharitramanas, was about leaving home. Ram would have been in exile, and this is seen as similar to the Bidesiya story of indentured immigrants being exiled or exodus out of India for circumstances, well, beyond the discussion here. Next slide. Right, this slide highlights the general areas from where Indians were recruited for indentureship. To the upper part, as we will see in more detail, was in the general area of Uttar Pradesh and Bihar, as well as the southern parts of India from Madras, these were where the British occupied. So that's why the recruitment areas were specifically in these parts. Next slide. Next slide. All right, and this highlights specifically the recruitment in northeastern India. Each dot represents an indentured laborer. So you see Uttar Pradesh and you see Bihar. So the greatest density of indentured immigrants came from eastern Uttar Pradesh and western Bihar. I want to highlight here that the Ramrajya was part of this geography, so that why the Ramcharitramanas might be, and Ramayana is so significant in the indentured laborers and the descendants, is that it would be part of the history, being that the Ramrajya would have existed in the geography from where the majority of recruitment took place. Next slide. Right. Now, the previous map, you would have seen the areas of recruitment. Now, I have superimposed these areas of recruitment onto a linguistic map. And as you could see, the light blue is the Bhojpuri speaking area. The yellow is the Awadhi speaking area. The dark blue is the Maithili speaking area. And the sky blue, not sky blue, but in between the other two colors is Magahi, as you would see in the illustration. So it's just to show the languages that make up the or the languages or speech types of speech that make up Caribbean Hindustani or the Hindustani of the diaspora. Caribbean Hindustani would be an example. Again, you would see Awadhi, which the Ramcharitramanas is written in, would also be an important area of recruitment. Next slide. Right, and I just want to put in perspective here, where does Awadhi, Bhojpuri and Hindi lie? As you would see, they all come from the spoken variety of Sanskrit called Prakrits, but the variety is based on region. So Hindi would have been the central to western Prakrit called Chaurasini. As you would see, represented as Hindustani or Hindi, Urdu there. Then Ardha Magadhi, right? This is the formal language or the language in which Jain texts are written. Awadhi comes from that. And Bhojpuri actually comes from Magadhi Prakrit and for part of the Magadhan language family, so that these, even though they have come from a common source, they actually signify distinct and separate languages from each other, like Spanish and Portuguese. Next slide. Right. So it's very important to note that during the time of indentureship, what we know as modern standard Hindi was not the standard, or at least it was in the process of uprooting what were the standards, which should have been Braj Bhasha and Awadhi, right? Indentured laborers, for the most part, would have spoken Bhojpuri, but they could have understood Ramcharitramanas because it formed parts of that speech. I remember my grandfather, who spoke Trinidad English Creole, uh, Bhojpuri, was his everyday, but he could still read Ramcharitramanas translated in Trinidad English Creole, as well as in standard Hindi. So this standard of the Hindustani, which was Awadhi, actually came from the 16th to 17th century from the Bhakti movement. I want to emphasize as well, there are in the types of Ramcharitramanas or the versions, there are differences in spelling, just like in Shakespeare plays, we would see different spelling because it represents an earlier period in the evolution of the language. Where spelling wasn't something that was standardized. It also depends on how you spell it in Bhojpuri versus how you would spell it in Awadhi, might be a bit different. So catering to the dialects might be important. Many grammatical forms resemble Caribbean Hindustani, obviously, because again it comes from that Bhojpuri Awadhi speaking area. And there's a clear grammar semantic syntax that exists, albeit to poetic license, that is of the Ramcharitramanas. So I mean, this is linking why it is one, the Ram Rajya, or the area which was the kingdom of Ram, the language, are two very important aspects as to why it is even the Ramcharitramanas forms part of the roots of indentured laborers and the literature that was prevalent. Next slide. Right. And these are verses specifically taken from Tulsi Ramayana or Ramcharitramanas. I highlighted these one to show the difference, and also I know for the Caribbean specifically, they would know these because these sort of expression appear in songs, whether it be chutney, folk, or bhajan, or local classical. So the first one is more Tor, as from a popular chutney song, but again we see it here in Tulsi Ramcharitramanas, and it's different from Mera Tera, which is Hindi. So again, it emphasizes that uniqueness of the Tulsi Ramcharitramanas language that has significance in indentured laborers. This line is quite interesting because it shows the past, present, and future tense of the verb to be. Bhayau, hai, and honeu, right? Again, in Hindi, it's hua, hai, as similar, ba, as some of us might know in Bhojpuri, and hoga, which is completely different. Avat is also an important phrase used in the song expression, again, because it takes its base in Ramcharitramanas language, meaning the present tense. So I see in there, it's supposed to, I suppose to highlight coming. So Avat is coming. Kavan. Again, that's something you would hear in songs. Kaun in Hindi means who, but kaun could mean who or what, and depending on the context within Tulsi Ramcharitramanas language or the language of the indentured laborers, as opposed to asking which thing. Apan, again, which is apana in Hindi, is also something you would hear. Apan is the reflexive, right? In this context, thine. Ohi is another expression you hear in songs. Ohi baburaban me. So again, in this context, Ohi means him. Next slide. Right, and I just want to look again. You would see Hindi, modern standard Hindi, Braj Bhasha, Awadhi, and Bhojpuri. The past tense, Gaya in Hindi, Gayo in Braj, Gaye in Awadhi, and Gail in Bhojpuri. Present tense, Jata in Hindi, Jat, Jat, Jat. You see that commonality there between Awadhi and Bhojpuri. And in the future tense, Jai in Bhojpuri, Jahi in Awadhi, and Jai Hai in Braj. Uh, you would see a resemblance now with Hindi at Braj versus Awadhi and Bhojpuri. What I want to highlight is that there was a lot of movement in between Bhojpuri and Awadhi speaking areas. So sometimes there's a thin line into defining well which is which, because a lot of Awadhi, a significant part resembles Bhojpuri. Next slide. Right, and these are important words as well because Awadhi and Bhojpuri might share because the phonetics are a bit the same as different from Hindi. But again, there is, and we'll come to the other slides of why the language is important within the context of the descendants of the indentured laborers. A lot of times people call the forms of Bhojpuri Awadhi corrupted forms and refer to the Hindi form as the correct form. But honestly, Awadhi and Bhojpuri is of greater antiquity to Hindi. So these words, even though they might appear in Hindi, Awadhi and Bhojpuri actually have the older form of the word, right? And actually represents that language evolution. Is very important for us as descendants of indentured laborers, especially studying Ramcharitramanas, to pick up these differences. So Kshan is Chan, Nam, now, Vishwas, Biswas, Aisa, Ais, Lakshmana becomes Lachiman. Again, it is important for that because one, the usage of these words in the poetic form of Tulsi Das is very important to note that in the Awadhi forms, they fit the meter and rhyme, whereas in the Hindi forms, not necessarily so. So looking at Ramcharitramanas being a poem in the language of our ancestors is very important for us to appreciate the language as well as know about it, even in a sense, about it in such a way that we would understand. Next slide. Right, so this is the crux of the presentation. UNESCO and ancestral languages. UNESCO has designated intangible elements of culture, language being one, to be something is preserved. And we know this experience, at least in the English-speaking parts of Indian diaspora, the loss of a language and the impact on our culture. Me, and as well as the working Caribbean Hindustani, has realized that because the language is not understood, essence of the meaning of whether it be Ramcharitramanas, a bhajan, and all these, it's lost over time. People might, who read Ramayana in Trinidad, might have learned what the verses meant and pass it down. But again, if you don't understand the language, there would be some loss in translation over time as to what was meant. I know of examples working Caribbean Hindustani where artists of the modern generation would give a meaning of a song, but when you understand the language, you realize that is not necessarily meaning. So that's why it's important. Loss of language and ability to hear the sound and poetic language of Ramcharitramanas, therefore, aesthetically savor the beauty of the language. And we mentioned that before. When we put this in English, when we put this in the translations in English, we lose the poetic meter. There's something in literature regarding how something sounds to carry the message and how you would remember it, how you would savor the essence of what it means. So again, it puts the importance of the language and why it would be necessary for those involved in Ram Leela, involved in Ramayana reading, and so understand the language in which, or the original language in which this text is written in, so that there's less loss of what the poet and as what the essence of what the poet is trying to say. and poetic, and I mentioned is poetry and the ability to remember the narrative. Again, when something rhymes, you remember it easier. So that was the intent of Ramcharitmanas, even from the days of the Vedas. Even from the days of the Vedas, again, it was meteric and it was rhyme, alliteration, and these sort of things. So if you translate it in English, that's lost. And that's also part of the aesthetics, that's also part of the meaning of the song. Tulsi composed the Ramcharitmanas so the masses could hear the Leelas of the avatar of Ram, which is true because by the time the Bhakti movement, people didn't speak Prakrit or Sanskrit or Apabhransh, the original or the Valmiki Ramayana, which is in classical Sanskrit, people didn't understand. So Tulsi, the language of our forefathers, or even the forefathers of our forefathers, would have been in Awadhi Bhojpuri. So Tulsi's rendition of Ramcharitmanas was so that the common man could understand, and that goes back to languaging, where you lost the ability to understand or speak Sanskrit Prakrit, so that again you have lost in translation. So what Tulsi did was really great in the sense of now composing it in a poetic style that is of the language of the common hoi polloi. And the loss of the ability to recite the Ramcharitmanas as part of daily worship, again in sound and intent of a poet, there's something inbuilt there as that creates a connection between the devotee and God. At the end of it, if we cannot do that, the substitute, yes, is to recite it in English. The thoughts might be the same, but yet still something is lost. Something is lost regarding our identity based on our perspective of who is the divine, who is the greater power, what is the greater power. And that is systematized to be something that is expressed in the literature. Again, remembrance of older or senior persons who understood the language and recitation of Ramcharitmanas, even in the form of prayer, is something that strikes a chord. And if it strikes a chord, it means it's dear to us and it's something worth preserving. At this juncture, I just want to say that Caribbean Hindustani, in collaboration with the Ayodhya Research Institute and all those on the committee who set up this Ramlila workshop, would be working closely now to try to basically use Ramcharitmanas to teach Hindustani, Hindustani of the diaspora, right? Even though we emphasize Hindi might be apart from Awadhi and Bhojpuri, apart from Hindi, at the end of the day, the three comes under that because the Ramcharitmanas has visions translated into Hindi. But again, we go back to the fact that, well, even translated into Hindi or into English, it takes away from the rhythm and rhyme, which forms part of the meaning and the essence which the author wanted to express. Next slide. Right, these are the references used to put together this presentation. Next slide. Right, we come to the end of the presentation. I would like to invite everyone who takes part in this workshop to visit CaribbeanHindustani.org. We also have a Facebook page, Caribbean Hindustani. And any questions or any ideas you might have regarding such a project to teach the language through the text of Ramcharitmanas, you could probably engage us there. We look forward to further work with this committee regarding the language and linguistic aspects of this project and how it evolves in future. I would like to give thanks to Caribbean Hindustani for the opportunity here, as well as to Raj, who assisted me, and Pandit Indrani with regard to the presentation, also the Ayodhya Research Institute, as well as the committee here for granting us the opportunity, and we look forward to further collaboration on this noble venture. Namaste.